to get back on track. And so that's what I did this morning. I made a new list because my original plan and list for the day didn't really work out as planned. And so I see a lot of light greens. Let's go. We've got a dark green. We've got some yellows and oranges, got some memes. That's great. Thanks for participating. So, our goals are really to think about our mindset first because you can do everything by the book, right? You can do all of the decluttering, you can do all of the organization that you want. But if your mindset is not in a place where you're going to be able to really maintain that and to have a positive mindset, to be able to kind of bounce back from challenges when they arise, because your house is not going to stay tidy. Once you tidy it, you're always going to have to come back and retidy it. Once you clean your house is always going to have to be cleaned again. Once you organize your house, you're still going to have to maintain that. And so whether it's your physical home or whether it's your personal life or whether it's your professional life, all of these things will overlap because life is constantly this state of change, and it's dynamic and it's always changing, right? And so you're always going to have to be working on this maintenance regardless of how much effort you put in. One of my sons yesterday, he's almost 14. He'll be 14 next week. And he said, Mom, he said, I don't understand. He was like, I clean my placemat at the dinner table off all the time. And he said, I feel like I'm constantly cleaning it. No matter what I do, I'm constantly having to take dishes off of the placemat. And he was like, it just never stays clean. And I said, son, that's exactly how I feel about every aspect of my life. You're always going to be cleaning or tidying or attending to something. It's just maintenance. That's just how life is. And he said, I don't know that I like that. He's like, but I will fix my placemat before dinner's over. And I said, well, that's great. That's all I can ask you to do. And that's really all we can ask of ourselves, is just to constantly be taking the next steps to get our life in order. So we're going to talk about managing the home environment, how we can eliminate physical and digital clutter, which for me, digital clutter is some of the hardest clutter to tackle, because for me, it's out of sight, out of mind, and it gets a little bit difficult sometimes to maintain that. Developing routines and rhythms are really important. We'll talk about that, how we can manage our energy better, our time better, how we can manage and stay on top of tasks and text and emails. You just need a system in place. And so we'll talk about some systems that may work for you. Almost any system will work if you work that system. And so it's really about maintaining a system that is personalized and effective for you, because it can be a great system, but if you don't access it, if you don't use it, if you don't work that system, then it's not going to work. It's kind of like dieting. Almost any, diet, quote unquote, will work, but it's a matter of, can you stick with that? And so we need to come up with a process that works well for you and for your life, and hopefully for the people that you do life with. So your family, it might be kids, it might be a partner, it might be grandkids, it might be a roommate, whomever. We've got to get everyone kind of on board, because that's going to make your life a lot easier. The less resistance that you have, the less obstacles you have to overcome, the easier it is to kind of maintain. And then organizing paper and documents. I know paper clutter is a nemesis for many people. We had a question about that in the chat, and so I'll talk to you about some of my favorite things to help get a plan together for tackling that paper clutter. And then planning time for projects and organization. Again, it's all about maintenance mode. And so once you get an area of your home or life maintained really well, then you need to have a plan to be able to go back and then think about, okay, how can I keep this in this state? Or even better, am I ready to level up? Is there something else that I can do to make this even easier for myself? And a lot of times there is. So with your mindset, just a couple of things. You'll have access to these slides. Miranda will pop them in the chat. You can always come back. That's a great aspect of teams, but I want you to think about increasing your confidence in yourself. Sometimes when we feel a little unsure or a little uncertain about, you know, what's the best choice or what's the best approach, we can get stuck in indecision. And so I want you to really think about increasing your self-confidence and your self-trust. And so by doing that, you're going to be able to be more effective in things like organization. And I know that may sound like that might not be true, or that might, not be the first thing you want to do. You want to really just have a strategy in place of how can I get this thing on my list done quicker, or how do I get my house to be a little bit more automated and run a little bit better. But really, it starts with yourself first. And with yourself, it starts with your mind, managing your mind, managing your mindset, your emotions. And so realizing that you're not perfect, no one's perfect. You can't, have a negative self concept or self talk about these things, because we're all human and we're all going to have moments where we are not able to maintain a perfectly organized life, and that's okay. So there's some other principles here from Chris Croft. He has a lot of great information about business and mindset on LinkedIn, and we all have access to that as UA employees. And so he's got some classes that he teaches, and these are some of the nuggets that I pulled out from one of his classes that I did recently. And so learning to build your confidence is really about showing up and doing your best and acknowledging that. And then increasing your self confidence and your self trust is about following through on what you say you're going to do. So if you say that you're going to get up at a certain time, but you always hit snooze, your mind is listening. And so it reminds you and says, well, Abby, you said you were going to get up today at 6 o'clock, but you hit snooze and you didn't get up until 7. So that kind of erodes the self trust. Or, Abby, you said you were going to exercise yesterday after you got done with clinical and you had a headache, so you didn't. And so that erodes a little bit of the self trust, right? But it also has to do with giving yourself grace, right? So, yeah, I didn't keep that commitment to exercise yesterday, but I had a really bad headache. And so then that's when you have to kind of course correct and say, you know what, but I'm going to give myself grace because I didn't feel well and I still showed up and did my best at work. And then I gave myself rest because that's what I really needed. And so confidence, self trust, grace, or self compassion is what we talk about, are really integral to getting your life kind of together. That's what I always tell people. I'm going to get my life together this weekend. And that just means I'm going to get back on track with my organization and my good habits. And organization is a habit. Chris Croft also talks about controlling the circle. So he talks about in this cycle of kind of criticism, we have to break the cycle of it. So we have to remember that we're doing a great job, we're showing up, we're doing our best, and we're breaking this cycle or this circle of criticism. And so I think that that's really helpful. I've listed it here for y'all so that y'all can read some more on it. But controlling the circle just means controlling what you can control. And I'll always tell people to focus on what you can control. And there's a lot that you can control, there's a lot that you can't, but usually it's really about controlling your attitude and your effort. Everything else can get a little bit more difficult to manage, and that's not what we're trying to do here. And then he also has this acronym about forget it and drive on. And I relate this to Coach Saban's mentality on the process and next play, right? So you do the best that you can in the play that you've got, and then next play and move on, right? That play is over. Whether we dropped the ball, whether we fumbled, whatever it is, in this football analogy we're using, we've got to forget it and drive on, like Chris Croft says, or we've got to do next play, like Coach Saban says, and just learn from the mistake, but don't dwell on it and move forward, having learned something about the process or learned something about ourselves in that process. So that always helps me to reset when I feel like I'm having a lot of challenges and I can't really seem to dig my way out. And so there's some things that really affect our ability to get organized. Again, whether this is organizing our to-dos and our tasks, or whether it's organizing our home or work life, and things like procrastination or motivation that kind of waxes and wanes, we have to really build in systems that rely on discipline, on showing up every day, on habits, and not our motivation, because our motivation is going to come and go based on, how much sleep we've had, if we're hungry, if we're tired, if we're stressed. And so we want to really think about building in the habit of discipline, of showing up and organizing and tackling our projects every day. We sometimes feel like we need more time, or we need more help, or that we don't feel like we've managed our time well. We may feel overwhelmed or stuck, and that's us getting in that fight or flight mode. Sometimes when we have stress, we think about that saber-toothed tiger where we are either going to face the tiger or we're going to run away from the tiger, right, and flee. But so many times in modern day culture, we really just get frozen. We get in that frozen response of stress where we don't know what to do. We feel stuck. We feel overwhelmed. And so we have the freeze response to stress. And I feel like that's where we get a lot of times when we're feeling like we're not organized, or we're feeling like our life is a little out of control, or home just doesn't feel manageable. Usually I see people kind of in that stuck phase of the stress response. And then again, like just managing physical clutter. Maybe something has happened. Maybe a life event has made things particularly difficult. For me, this past year, I had a major surgery last March in 2023. And for me, getting back and recovering was a really long process. I'm still in that process. I'm still going through physical therapy and things like that. And so for me, actually lifting things that are heavy or doing a lot of deep cleaning is still challenging for me physically. And so that's one of those roadblocks. That's one of those things that is a life event, and that won't always be a challenge for me, but it's currently a challenge. And so I'm having to work around that. If we let that overwhelm us, that can lead to physical clutter, that can lead to indecision. We can get decision fatigue of like, I don't know what else I should do. I don't know what else I should throw away or what else I should keep. We may be unsure of how to start. There just are so many things here. I won't list them all, and outline all of them here for you, but you can reference this, and there are probably so many other challenges that we could name. But I want you to do right now is just think of what's your biggest challenge. Again, you're welcome to share it, but I'd love for you to just to think about it. What is kind of holding you back? Is it something on this list that I've named, or is it something that maybe I haven't thought about? Think about that for the next little bit, because we've got to really address the challenge before we can think about problem solving. So, declutter. You can't organize clutter. And I think that's an important thing to remember, is that a lot of times when we're trying to get organized, it's because we have a little bit of, this feeling of being out of control. But if we're trying to organize clutter, or we're trying to organize chaos in terms of like we've got so much on our plate, we're trying to figure out how to fill it all in, we've got too many puzzle pieces to try to make it fit, then that can be really challenging. And so reducing or minimizing what we're having to organize, or what we're having to declutter, or what we're having to make fit in our homes or our life can be really helpful. So some people said decision fatigue. Some people said parenting, creating meaningful experiences while balancing work and life. Some people said other people in my home. Yes, other people in my home is a big one for me. For those of you who don't know me, I have 5 children, ages 11 to 16. I have 2 sets of twins. So I have a 16-year-old daughter, 2 boys who will be 14 next week, and a boy and a girl who will be 12 in June, a husband, and a dog. So I understand about other people in the home. Some people said any given day it could be any of those listed. Biggest would not be knowing where to start. People in my office being slow or not wanting to make decisions to progress. Yeah. And so it all goes back to controlling what you can control, because we can't control our coworkers or colleagues. We can't control the people in our homes as much as we may want to. But what we can do is we can control how we show up, our attitude, our effort. And a lot of times when we start to make positive changes, other people will follow along. So, yeah, thank y'all for sharing that. We'll talk more about it as well. So, the best place to start is where you feel the most pain. So, we talk about it as being a pain point. So, if getting dinner on the table every night is the biggest source of stress for you, that's where you should start. If your, clutter at home is the biggest source of stress for you, then where is your house the most cluttered? If managing your calendar or the things that you have to do every day is your biggest source of stress, then start there. So people will tell you, here is an exact formula of what you should do and where you should start. And I never say that, because it's going to depend on where you are and where you feel the most stress in your life. And that's going to change, right? Just like our mood changes throughout the day, our stress around what we need to organize is going to change. So for me, 10 to 12 years ago, I was just up to my eyeballs in clutter, literal physical clutter, mental clutter, digital clutter, any type of clutter that you could imagine. I was really managing stress poorly. I thought that I was doing okay. From the outside, I looked like I was managing everything okay, but I was using food and I was using the buying of things and just some of those other unhealthy habits to really manage my stress and didn't realize that that's what I was doing. I was not intentional with that at all. And so I also had 5 young kids under the age of 5 during that time. And so I had a lot of physical clutter because kids of that age have a lot of things. And to be a quote unquote good mom, I bought all the latest gadgets and, baby gear and kid gear that I thought would make me a good mom because I wanted to be a good parent. And I'm saying good in air quotes throughout this, y'all, because that's all relative. And so I was literally feeling like I could not take another step in my home. But figuratively, I didn't know where to start either. And so, where I started was in my car because I felt like I had the most control over my car and because I was spending a lot of time in my car. Very few organizational specialists are going to tell you to start with your car. That's usually not the first go to. They'll say to start at your work with your desk, or they'll say to start in your kitchen, which is an absolute nightmare. I would never start in my kitchen personally, but a lot of people recommend that. Some people will tell you to start in your bedroom or in your bathroom because that's more personal. Usually you only share it with one other person if you share it at all. And your bathroom is usually a good place to start because there's not going to be as much clutter, as much sentimental, clutter that you could have. And it's usually not an overly large space. So it's easy to just start with one drawer or to start with cleaning off your counter. And so for me, I would recommend you write down, if you have a place that you can do that right now, write down the place that's causing you the most stress in your home, or write down the aspect of managing your personal professional life that's causing you the most stress. And then let's think about during this presentation, what's a couple of things, maybe 1 to 2, maybe 3 things that you could do that would make that better. And I'll give you all some suggestions. So for me, it was okay, what can we do to make this car a happier place since I'm in this minivan all the time? All right, it's dirty. I'm going to go get it washed. So I'm going to go to the car wash. All right. How would that be a more exciting thing to do? Well, I could take the kids and I could give them a treat. I don't personally like going to the car wash. To me, someone asked over the weekend on Instagram, is the car wash a chore for you? Is it scary to you or is it just neutral? And I answered it's scary because we got stuck in a car wash when I was a kid. So I don't like to go in the car wash by myself. I'm telling y'all lots of secrets about me, but I hope it helps you kind of identify these things in your own life. That's why I share to try to be helpful. And so I don't like it. So I'm like, okay, I'll go get a treat. I'll have a little, fun beverage. I'll go get, a Coke or a milkshake or something. I don't know. This was back in the day when I was doing a lot of unhealthy things and getting a lot of treats for me and the kids. But that's what I did. I was trying to make a better choice. And so I gave myself grace for that. So I loaded up the kids in the car. We all got a treat. We went to the car wash and I was able to wash it and then I could vacuum it and then I got gas. And so then when I got to the gas station, I was able to get all of the things out of that car and get it tidy. And so it was by the time I got home, the kids had had a fun outing with their mother. I had gotten a treat. They had gotten a treat. The car had gotten a bath. It had gotten decluttered and cleaned out. It had gotten vacuumed. And, I was able to throw those things away at the gas station while I was getting gas. So I was habit stacking these things and I wasn't having to take the trash out when I got home. And I got home and when I parked the car, I knew that it was ready for the next day when I needed to get up and go to a very early hospital clinical day. That made such a huge difference to a mom of 5 young kids, 4 of which were in diapers at the time, in car seats, and my oldest was 4.5, 5 years old. That made a huge difference for my mental health. Okay, so that's where I started. So I maintained that, and then I added one more thing every day, every week that I could add one more thing until I became a pretty organized person. If people ask you, something about me, a fun fact, they're going to say, "Oh, she's really organized," but that wasn't always the case. And so I just want you to think about you can change how people see you. You can change how you see yourself and become a totally different person by taking very, very small baby steps. Morgan says, I'm not alone. I'm 31 and claustrophobic in car washes. Yes, I'm 38, and I think I will always be a little afraid of a car wash. Karen says, putting laundry makes it crazy. It never ends. Yes, Laundry Mountain is real. I can count the number of times since I've become a mother 16 years ago where laundry was all caught up. And that's okay because laundry is not supposed to be completely done, Karen. I love this. I learned this a few years ago when I was going through my certification program. Laundry is never going to always be done if you have people in your home and y'all are wearing clothes. And so laundry is always in a process. And so all laundry is never going to be completely done at any given time. There's always going to be clothes you're wearing, clothes that are in the basket, clothes that are in the washer or dryer, clothes that are on the counter or in the basket that need to be hung up. And that's okay. So don't feel like you have to expect that that's done. Let me know if that gives you any kind of peace of mind. It made me feel better. Now, there have been a few unicorn moments in my life where the only clothes that were dirty and not hung up in the closet were the ones that we were wearing. But that's happened maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 19 years, 18 years since I've been on my own as an adult. So don't expect that from yourself. So make a plan, set a date, gather any supplies that you think you're going to need, enlist any help that you think you're going to need. Sometimes help is just having someone ride with you. So having the kids go in the car wash with me. I can't be too afraid of being in the car wash if I've got kids with me. And so I have to put on a brave face, or at least I feel like I have to. And so that was my way of enlisting help. If you need boxes or, if you need some other supply, garbage bags, Sharpies, anything like that, put that in the space where you're going to be working. Take a before picture. I think that's really helpful to remember how much you've done in making progress. Sometimes we forget how much we've done in a space. Declutter what you can. So just throw out any obvious trash if you're decluttering a space. Take an after picture. Sometimes that's just an in progress picture, right? Sometimes we don't get finished. And then always say to rinse and repeat as much as you need to in that space or a different space. Marcia says, I always fold and hang up clothes as soon as they come out of the dryer so I don't feel overwhelmed. I totally agree. It's never ending. Yes, and that is ideal. I try to do that too because now I have people who, if I leave things in the washer or dryer, they are going to shrink the clothes or over dry them or leave them to sour. And so that's extra motivation for me to grab them out of the dryer. And I have a huge basket at home waiting for me. So my laundry is not done, y'all. Recently went 2 weeks washing laundry in our bathtub when our washer was breaking, and we have a 5-month-old. I haven't been so stressed about laundry since. Yeah, it does put it in perspective. When my kids were really little, we also had a dryer that went out and we had to wait on the part to come in. And it was like a 3-week situation where we didn't have a working washing machine. And that put things in perspective for me too. Also, I have to clean the kitchen before I start cooking. My husband thinks that's funny. No, I think that's practical. The kitchen for me is the hardest place in the home. We live in our kitchen and we cook a lot. We have a lot of kids. It's never clean and it causes a lot of anxiety for me. So I never say to start there. But I do follow the Fly Lady, and so I always try to make sure that my counters get cleaned off at least once a week and reset, usually when we do groceries or shopping on the weekend. And then I try to clear out the clutter in my sink every night. She says to shine your sink, but that's not realistic with 5 kids and a spouse. And so that's not realistic right now in my season. I think it's a great principle, but she says shine your sink. So make sure all of your dishes are done, your hand wash, your dishwasher dishes are done, and then clean your sink every night and reset it, put out a new, dish towel every night. I think that is ideal, but she has a very different lifestyle right now. She is an adult with no young people in her house. And so, when I get to that point, I probably will do that, but I'm not there yet, and that's okay. So create a system. I have a system with my kids because my kids like to be helpful, but in like sometimes not a helpful way. And so they'll say, "Oh, this is a trash bag. Let me go grab that and take that out for mom." And then sometimes what's in the bag is not actually trash. So what we did is we color coded our trash bags, and I'll share that with y'all. So we've got our boxes that we label when we go through any kind of declutter as garbage, donations, something that maybe I need to make a decision about, or maybe I need to ask a family member about, something that maybe needs to be relocated or rehomed, anything that needs repairs. So we have a box in a designated place that if something breaks that the kids have, or something breaks that I have, then it goes into this box for repairs so that we can get to it when we can. And then anything that needs to be returned. So this could be like something you've bought that needs to be returned that maybe didn't fit or you didn't like. It could be a library book. It could be something that you borrowed from a friend or family member. And so I have a place in our house near our garage where our returns go so that when I have time, I've got that there. I also have a bag that is for errands. And so anything that needs to have a designated time to get redone or to get addressed, it goes in the errands bag so I can just grab that. And then when I'm out, I make a plan so that I don't zigzag across Tuscaloosa and Northport, but I can go through and say, okay, I'm going here today. What in this errands bag can I actually offload and get? So black bags are for decluttered trash. So I started this when the kids were little because as kids do, as all humans do, when we see something, it's like out of sight, out of mind, but then we see it and we're like, oh, I want to keep that. And so when I would declutter, especially when the kids were too young to help me with this, now they're old enough that they get to say, what stays and what goes to a certain extent. I didn't want them seeing things and thinking, oh, mom threw out my drawing, or oh, mom got rid of this thing that I liked. So we used the black trash bags so the kids couldn't see those. And then we knew between my husband and I, if it was in a black trash bag, it was something that was getting decluttered. That didn't necessarily mean that it was trash. It didn't necessarily mean that it was donations. It just meant that it was clutter that was leaving the house. For clear bags for donations, so these were things that like my husband and I had agreed on. They weren't necessarily kid things, but they were things that we were donating so that it was obvious that it wasn't household trash, right? And then the white bags that you typically think about as being household garbage, we use those for household trash. And that helped us make sure that while we were decluttering, that food trash was not getting in decluttered trash that couldn't be donated somewhere, or that wasn't getting into the actual donation bags. So that's how we used our color-coded system. And we eventually went to these blue bags so that you could see through them, but you knew clearly that those were for donations, and that if you saw this bag and it was tied up, that it was ready to be dropped off to our favorite donation center. So that may help y'all. I don't know if that's something that is a issue for y'all in terms of like getting things out of your house. But a lot of times we get overwhelmed because we declutter something, but we don't get it out of the house. So you might go through and clean and declutter and say, yeah, I want to get rid of these things. But if you don't pack them up, get them into your car, and then get them from your car to the actual place they need to go, then you haven't completed the cycle of decluttering or organizational process. And so you're probably feeling a little overwhelmed because you did all of that work, but you're not really feeling the result of it. It's because you haven't closed that loop. Hannah says, I bought colored trash bags on Amazon. They're really affordable and help with organization. Yes, that's where we get ours too. And it's great that they ship them to you. And so you can always have them on hand. I love that too. Thanks, Hannah. So questions to ask yourself. What's the worst thing that could happen if I throw this away? The minimalist, they often will say, if this were to suddenly combust, if it were to just poof, disappear, would I replace this thing? And if the answer is no, then you can probably declutter it in a responsible way. Emily Lay says, is this the best, the favorite, or necessary? So that's a good one to ask. So if I look at my sunglasses, for example, I have them right here. I have a couple of pairs of sunglasses. If I couldn't manage more than one pair of sunglasses, then I would look and I would say, is this the best pair of sunglasses I have? Is this my favorite pair of sunglasses that I have? Is this necessary? For me, I'm very sensitive to the sun. And so, yes, sunglasses are necessary. Is this the best pair that I have? Yes. Is it my favorite pair that I have? Yes. So the others, if I chose to get rid of the other pairs of sunglasses that I have, then I would keep this pair and donate the others. And so that's how she uses that principle. And I think it works really good, especially for kids or spouses who may not be on board. I always like to ask for myself, is this beautiful or is it useful? For some people, they are all about function, right? It doesn't matter if it's pretty. For me, I have favorite pens. And so it might be that you have a pen and you think, okay, well, this is just functional. Does it write? Yes. Okay. Do I need a pen? Yes. Okay. I'm going to keep it. But for others of us, we're like, but is this pretty? Is it pretty and is it useful? Is it practical? And do I want to keep it? Is it my best pen? Is it my favorite pen? And so those are some things that you can use, just simple objects to ask those questions. Marie Kondo has a couple of books that I'm going to recommend at the end. And she uses the principle, does it spark joy? And she says that you need to pick the things up and literally touch them, literally put your hands on them and say, does this spark joy? Because sometimes we see things that we like, but then we pick it up and we don't have a connection to it like we thought we would. So instead of just picking something up in Target and then putting it in your buggy, really pick it up and say, does this spark joy? Is this something I want? Also, when you're buying new things, you can ask, like, where am I going to put this? So that's a question that my husband and I ask each other when we say, I was like, I really like this table. I love tables, y'all. And he'll laugh and he was like, is it going to be a life-changing table? And I was like, I'm sure it will be. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, where are you going to put it? And if I can't come up with a reason that I need it or a place where I'm going to put it, or that I'm going to replace it and why I'm going to replace it. Those are some of the questions that I ask myself or that I have him ask me. And if I can't answer those questions, then I don't buy the table or whatever thing it is. Would I buy it again? Can I borrow it or rent it? What will happen to it when I die? I know that is a little bit more of a sensitive question, but it's something that I really think about now after having gone through a lot of our family members' possessions that I know were very special to them, but we don't know those stories. And without the stories, those items are not as special. And so it makes it a little bit harder to know what to keep or what to pass on because we don't know the stories. And a lot of times the story is what keeps you hanging on to something that maybe is not in its best season of life. So that's a question that I ask myself now, having gone through that experience. Can I replace it within 20 minutes for $20? And if I haven't used it in 6 months to a year, and I can replace it within 20 minutes or $20, if I need it again, you might consider not keeping it. Where will I use this? Where will I store it when I'm not using it? Is it likely to end up in a future garage sale? How often do I think I'm going to use it in the next 3 years? Was this a gift? Does it have any kind of like sad emotions like guilt associated? And is it even mine to manage? Sometimes when we're trying to manage things for our spouses or our partners or our kids or other people, or maybe roommates, is it even yours to manage? If it's not, then you might consider asking that person to manage it. And empowering children to manage their own things, older elementary school kids can help with that process. And then create a decision framework. So for people who have trouble with decision fatigue or making a decision to begin with, a lot of times these are things that can help. Now, y'all don't make these hard and fast rules because you don't want to guilt yourself into doing something that, that it was a rule that Abby said, so I'm going to do it. But maybe these will help you adapt as needed. When in doubt, throw it out. Take a picture if that helps. I think that can really help when you're trying to decide on something. Yesterday, I saw a bunny rabbit, a stuffed bunny rabbit in Publix. As I was walking the aisles to pick up groceries, was not there to actually buy anything Easter related, but saw the bunny rabbit and remembered as a kid My bunny rabbit that I had been given as a child during the Easter season had been given away. And that was something that always bothered me because I'm a sentimental person. And when I saw this bunny yesterday, my husband knew the story and he saw it with me and he said, "Oh, do you want that bunny?" And I said, "Yes and no, I don't need another bunny, and I probably wouldn't keep it. It would go to one of the kids or, I would get rid of it in the future." But it reminds me of the bunny I had when I was a kid that got given away without me knowing. And so I took a picture of the bunny and then I put it back on the shelf for someone else to enjoy. And I sent a picture of it to my mom and I was like, "Does this remind you of the bunny that I had when I was a little girl?" And of course she laughed, and it's a family joke. And so that's one thing that I remember, that bunny. Anytime I'm going to move something on to a new home, I make sure that our kids, and our other family members, people in the home that it would bother or impact, I make sure that they're on board with it, because making sure that they're comfortable in our home and that they don't feel like things are going to be given away without their permission now that they're older is really, really important, because we all are impacted by that sort of thing. I bet we all probably have a story. Store by asking, where would I look for this? So if you're looking for something, where would you look for it first? If you go to that place and that's not where you have stored it, then I would recommend storing it somewhere else. You just want to make sure that everything has a home. Alicia, I'm not sure why you've lost audio. Hopefully everyone else is okay. Set limits. So maybe you're going to keep 5 gift bags, or maybe you're organizing your calendar and you're saying, "I'm only going to work like 1 or 2 nights per week," or "I'm only going to travel 2 to 3 times per month," as you have control over that, right? Some of our jobs require us to have more flexibility when it comes to nights and weekends and travel, but maybe I'm only going to have 1 or 2 social events per week or per weekend. Limits on your volunteer work, your committee work, your other service, limits on everything. I call them rules. Everyone doesn't like rules. My husband does not like rules, so he says guidelines. But everyone has a different way of framing it. But having a framework for what you're going to do is really helpful, not just for you, but for the other people that you do life with. And it sounds like it's really restrictive. That's why most people don't like rules. But rules or guidelines like this let you have even more freedom. Decluttering ideas: reduce, reuse, recycle, release. So, like Elsa, just let it go. There's lots of other R's that you can look at in terms of, repurpose, um, recreate, recycle. All There's so many other R's in this recycle, kind of situation that you can use. But there's lots of graphics on Pinterest and online. But being able to use some of these are great ideas, because those are something you can recycle, repurpose. Maybe it's something that you can repair. There's lots of things that you can give new life to, or you can pass it on to someone else who can do something with it. So if it adds chaos to your life, or if it's just a headache or hassle, it's probably junk. I don't like to call things junk. I like to use pretty, positive language, but sometimes you need just to say, "Look, this is junk because it's adding to the clutter," and call it what it is. Sometimes that helps you kind of disassociate from it if you really know that you want to let something go, but you're struggling with it. It's best to declutter quickly. So once you see if it sparks joy, once you touch it, once you kind of have an idea, you'll get into a rhythm, a flow, and then just get it out quickly. So that's what's really helpful about having maybe, someone you hire, or a neighbor, or a friend, or a partner, spouse, an older kid, anyone, a neighborhood child that could help you. Get it out and get it to your car so that you're not rethinking about your decision. Trust your first decision and keep going. Obviously, if you keep thinking about it, go rescue it from the bag. You also could put it in a box and put a timeline, like you're going to look in a month from now and see if you've missed it or used it or you needed something like that. And you can go back and retrieve it from the box if it's something that you're really not sure about. But just deal with everything now, clean up, and don't delay decisions. So just kind of tidy as you go, as you're going through your declutter process. You might want to make a pile or a box, like I said, for the truly hard decisions, but try not to do that too much. Limit yourself to one box or one space. And then if you're considering letting something go, then it's probably time. Other decluttering ideas: giving up things that you want to do. Could just mean that, like, maybe at work you're returning extra supplies that you've gotten to keep in your desk. Sometimes, like, we have a hoarding mentality because we were really conditioned during kind of, feast and famine days of we didn't know where our next resources, our next supplies were coming from, thinking prehistoric, how our brains developed, our nervous systems developed. We really were kind of geared toward hanging on to things, right? Because we didn't know where our next meal was coming from. We didn't know where our next home was going to, be, when we were kind of in this nomadic situation, kind of coming up through our prehistoric days, building our brains and our nervous systems to respond to the world. And so look through your drawers. Do you need to have 3 or 4 notepads when you could get that in the office supply room at work? Do you need to have all of those extra file folders? Could they live in the workroom and you can just go grab them as you need to? Same thing at home. Sometimes we really overstock our pantries because we're concerned about, what if we can't find this thing? And so, think about that. Do you have a lot of extra things, a lot of backlog at home because you want to make sure that you have it and you don't want to go to the store to get it? That could be something that you think about. I did that as a nurse with a lot of Band-Aids and medical supplies. And now that I'm going to retrieve some of those things, I'm like, I'm so glad I have all these, stashes of Band-Aids. And then I go get the Band-Aids out and they've yellowed and they're discolored and they're not as sticky. And so I have this whole backlog, an entire bin of Band-Aids, because that made me feel safe as a new mother. And now they don't really work. I'm having to replace them. And so I spent money and space on Band-Aids that I ended up not even using. So think about my Band-Aids when you want to stock things for a long time. Things are not made to last that long. So try to avoid doing that. That's taught me a valuable lesson. Hold on to things with a loose grip. So the harder we cling to things, sometimes the more work it becomes. I read a book that said this woman decided to throw a rock at her new car to chip the paint, just to go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off and do that. I would never do that. That actually made me cringe and it made me a little sad because I love my car. I would never do that. And when I got a new car a couple of years ago, after a decade of not ever having a car, a new car other than our van, a rock hit it before we even made the first payment on it. And so I cried real tears on my way to work about that. So I would never do this, but it's the idea of, use your things, enjoy your things. The idea that you can delete something from your life. Think about, what are the things that you would delete? Maybe you could just actually go and delete those. And then be careful with collections. There's so many things that we are maintaining that maybe aren't ours that we really want to maintain anymore. So are we keeping things for a life that we used to have? Or are we creating a new life? And then start with things like your car, your primary bathroom, your bedroom, something small. It may even be that if you're completely overwhelmed, you just start with your purse or your wallet or your work bag or your backpack or your briefcase. Something that's just tiny, because that may be the only capacity that you have right now, and that's okay. And then track your progress. There's a 1,000 declutter challenge. Some people have one by the year. So you can do like a 2024, so getting rid of 2024 things in 2024. You can Google all of those declutter challenge trackers and find all of those for free online that you can download. And then Joshua Becker has a lot of great resources on minimalism. He's one of the big gurus in minimalism, and he says the first step in crafting the life you want is to get rid of everything that you don't. And I really believe that. It's one of my favorite quotes. Paper declutter, I'm going to just leave these as kind of resources of to-dos that you can do. So paper declutter, decide, toss or keep. So am I going to keep this or I'm going to toss it? If I'm tossing it, can it go in the trash or does it need to be shredded? Use it or lose it. If you're never going back to that paper, it's probably getting lost and causing you to be delayed in paying bills or attending to things that you need to take care of. Put baskets and trash cans where those kind of things collect. So sort mail immediately if you can. I do that when I get it out at the mailbox every day. Things go directly into the trash. And then the rest of the mail goes into what I call a Sunday basket. I've got a slide on it for us to look at as a family on the weekend. And then just start decluttering the paper that you have now and then go back to the backlog. So always organize what's coming in And then when you go back, you can organize the things that you haven't addressed in the past. Rebecca says, I've always heard touch your mail once. Yeah, I think that works for some people. I think some of us have so much going on and have so much mail coming in that may not work. But if that's a rule that works for people, I think that's great. It's a great principle in general. Yeah, Keith, these will be shared on here, but if you need them via email, then sure, reach out to us and we'll be happy to get them. Um, your daughter backed into your car as soon as you bought yours. You didn't even cry, but was relieved. Yeah, that's what the lady in the book said. She wanted to be responsible for causing the first ding in her car, but I couldn't do it. Yeah, and then so slowly you're going to start to manage the backlog later. So those are some different things that you can try. Decluttering your cell. These are things like, make this your waiting room game, or when you're waiting on something, you can, look at what apps do I need to delete, check your calendar, there are emails you can delete, messages like voicemails, social media, text messages, things like that. Maybe notes, maybe you need to go through your notes or silence some of your notifications. I have all of my notifications on my phone turned off. So if it's a text or if it is a phone call, I'll get the notification. Otherwise, I have to go to the app to get the notification because that's such a distraction. Go through your photos, like maybe by the week or maybe by the month, and see if there are any duplicates that you want to get rid of, or any, photos that you don't really want anymore. Maybe screenshots. I have a ton of screenshots, so that's something I have to really look at. Text and voicemails, as I mentioned. And then these are some other tips. Like once you kind of tackle these, then you can go through and look at, okay, what are some individual things that you can do? Digital declutter, email. My goal is always to get to inbox to zero, but it's becoming like the laundry. As I have more responsibilities at work and in my home life, it's just difficult to get to inbox zero every day, but that's my goal. These are some things that you can do. Using the snooze feature within Outlook has been helpful for me, and then using away messages to communicate when I'm not going to be available. Those are my two biggest ones that I've enjoyed. Also, having a digital email signature and communicating off hours is really, really helpful. Rebecca says she's got 16,000 emails. Okay, well, I have 62, so that's making me feel like maybe I'm not I'm like maybe I'm not the only one drowning. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's probably going to make a lot of us reevaluate our inboxes right now. Melanie's sharing some things about her pictures in Shutterfly. Yeah, I think that's a great. Becca says I need to unsubscribe. Yeah, I just did some unsubscribing this morning while I was waiting on my computer to work. The tech glitches out. So these are some things that you can try. Again, I've listed a ton of information, and there are a ton of the slides. I knew I wouldn't get through all of them today, but I wanted to be able to give y'all a ton of information so that you could all feel like you have a place to start. An email folder system is amazing. Yes, I have them by the year, and then I have them by project. So that's how I do my email. And then I'd schedule a office work day. So kind of like teachers do at the beginning and end of the years, like K through 12 teachers have work days. I find a time where I can just wear blue jeans and a t-shirt and come into the office, but not really be here, and declutter my office, work on digital files, work on shredding and filing papers, and just giving it a good clean, wiping off my screens, wiping off the desk, that sort of thing, and then getting rid of any papers that I don't need any longer. That's something that I do at least once a semester, so 3 times a year, and that helps me stay on top of things. And I list out some ways that you can say no to extra things coming in. So right now, I have a rule that I'm not taking any free swag or any other freebies right now because it's hard to say no, but it's also hard to figure out what to do with all those, right? So no to any extra swag, unless it's just, amazing swag. I'm going to say no to it right now. So surround yourself with things you love. A place that you like going to is going to make it easier to maintain. I always believe that, but that's something that's important to me. And then organizing. Once you've decluttered, then you can really start to organize. And so getting things out on paper, writing it down, making sure that you've got it plugged into your calendar, because what gets scheduled gets done. So make times in your calendar to work on some of your organizational things, do that for your personal and your professional life. I maintain a calendar for the weekends too, just because things need to get scheduled on the weekends. It's not just about my professional life getting scheduled. And so my family doesn't necessarily love that, but we get more done because of that. And so if it's on your calendar, it's more likely to get done. Build in a reward system for getting those things done. And then planning tips. So once a week, I plan on Friday. I plan my professional life. I look at the calendar to see what's coming up for the next week and what I need to do to prepare. I look at the weather. I look at what I need in terms of like meals. Am I going to be late that week? What days am I going to be late? Um, wardrobe. Is there anything special, like a function or something that me or the kids need something special for our wardrobes? Um, I get gas. I clean out the car. I go to the car wash on Friday. I get a Chick-fil-A Coke as my reward now. And so then on Sunday night, I go through my stuff for my family. I get my meals together. I do my grocery pickup. I plan out the week for the family. I sync my calendar with my older kids and my husband. I'll look at the to-do list, and then we go through anything that we need to discuss together. And then, look at organizing my time, my tools, and my tech, and there's a resource there. And then I write all the things down that I need to organize next. So these are some things that I like to use as a checklist. I make a later list. So things that I know I want to get to, but I just can't right now, it goes on my later list. And so I can look at it every few weeks and see, okay, is there anything else that can make it on my calendar or my to-do list right now? That later list is a lifesaver. I make my bed every morning because that's my first win of the day. I have a uniform of sorts, so I wear kind of a French capsule wardrobe. You're going to see me in a lot of black and white and denim and khaki because that makes my wardrobe like Garanimals for adults. It can mix and match pretty easily. And it's a pretty limited wardrobe, so I wear a lot of the same things all the time. Minimal jewelry, minimal makeup. It makes my life easy. I try to wash my dishes every day. My kids help with that. I'm very fortunate. I try to manage my inbox every day. Doesn't always get to zero, but it gets taken care of every day. The main things get taken care of. The rest gets snoozed. I try to pick 3 things to get done every day without fail. And then at the end of the workday, I try to wrap up and prepare for the next day. So I take the last 15 minutes of my day to look at my email one last time, clean off my desktop, clean off my actual desktop, computer, and my desk. I look at my calendar, I check my campus mailbox, and then I look at my calendar, my to-do list, and my action file to see what else needs to get done. And then I'm about to get to the resources. I know we're going to be at time, so if y'all need to go, y'all can, but this will still record so y'all can come back to it. So this is a Sunday basket. You can buy it. It's almost $200. I got mine at Target for like less than 30. I just got 3 of their little simple clear baskets, and it's a file folder and then a medium and a large basket that look really similar. And anything that needs to get done, mail, a light bulb replaced, a toy that got broken, whatever it is gets tossed in this basket and we take care of it on the weekend. And that includes like files and bills and repairs, anything like that. It just goes in that basket. The kids know, the husband knows. The only one that doesn't know is the dog. And then we use this planning sheet, which you can grab here at this link, and you can write down your weekly checklist, your to-dos, and your home to-dos. And that keeps you organized. And there's a ton of information on Organize 365 on how to do that. Miranda says that the team app is not letting her upload the slides like she normally does, but she'll get it sent out. So that's awesome. That will be an easy download for y'all. And then some other things, never leave a room empty-handed. Take 2 minutes. If you can do it in 2 minutes, go ahead and do it. Do one more thing than you think you can do. And then if it's something that you're dreading, go ahead and do it because it's just going to keep draining your energy. And then some time management tips. I packed this full, y'all. Some other helpful things that I like to do when you're just needing some help. I go to this list. Some habits of organized people. Y'all, if y'all have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Some other things that you can look at for other habits. I love to know your organizing style, so you can go to clutterbug.com and it gives you a whole overview of how you organize and how you like to organize. This is life changing, especially if you share your home with someone. I am a butterfly and my husband is a bee. And so the way that we organize is visual, but he's more detailed than I am. I like to keep things pretty macro and he likes to get micro, but we all need to see our things. So we're going to have more visual clutter than the average person. And so this is very, very helpful, especially in navigating relationships and expectations. So I want y'all to check in with your moods again. Hopefully it's better. Hopefully you don't feel overwhelmed. Just pick one or two things to start. But yeah, do a quick check-in. And then this is a list of resources. So it's going to be a toolkit that you can list. The whole PowerPoint's really a toolkit. But I want you to feel like that you have what you need to get started. And if you need a clarification or want to ask a specific question, you're always welcome to reach out to me. And I'm happy to answer any questions that I can for you. Of course, we'd love for you to follow us on our social media channels. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take those. Oh, Brian, I love seeing people I know on here and making new friends. He puts cash shelves and baskets to organize in your basement. Really finds it to be helpful in reducing your stress. Yeah, that's so great. I hope this was helpful. This was one of our biggest classes we've had. So I always like to be able to share. And I love that y'all can share and crowdsource too. Yeah, I'm so glad. Okay. I'll keep monitoring the chat. I know we're at our time, but if you need to go, absolutely feel free to hop off. But if anyone else has anything, please feel free. I always pack the organizational ones full of things because one, I love it and it's hard to edit myself, but two, I want y'all to feel like y'all got a ton of resources at your disposal. Good. I'm glad this was helpful. Y'all go pick one thing you're going to do this weekend. I know it may be a holiday weekend for some of us, but just pick one thing, even if it's just printing this PowerPoint when you get it. That might be the one step you can do this week. Good. I'm so glad. All right, guys. Well, I don't see any other questions. Always feel free to reach out if you have anything. It's always great to be with y'all. If y'all have other things y'all'd like for us to cover in future classes, whether it's organization or something different, please let me or Miranda know. We'll be happy to put something together for you guys. And I hope that y'all have a great rest of your Wednesday. And I hope that y'all share this. Feel free to share this information out with your friends and family. And y'all let me know how it goes. Let me know if this was something that was helpful and y'all are able to share a progress report with us. Yeah, Erica, y'all are going to get an email this week because they're having a little bit of a glitch with putting it in the Teams, but normally it lives here. So, but y'all check your email. Miranda's going to send it out to every participant. All right. Thank y'all. Have a good day.